Let's dive right into this explainer. I'm Manoj.
And I'm Ankita. We're looking at a story millions know by heart. But today, we're reading it differently.
Exactly. Not just as some ancient mythological tale. We're looking at it as a precise map, a literal guide for navigating human values when absolutely everything is on the line. Picture Ram at the edge of the forest. He's in simple garments, he's leaving his crown behind, having just turned his back on the massive palace of Ayodhya. It brings up a really heavy question. What does it cost to be the ideal? Because Ram is exactly that, the ideal son, the ideal husband, the ideal king. Yet every single time he upholds that standard, he loses something he deeply loves. And you know, that's not a plot flaw. That is the entire point. So, you have to ask, where does this heavy burden even come from? Well, the sage Valmiki composed this epic spanning a massive 24,000 shlokas. Now, on the surface, it reads like a classic rescue story, right? You've got an exiled prince, a wife abducted by a demon king, a huge war. But underneath all of that, it's a profound, utterly uncompromising manual for how to live.
Right, and to really grasp the story, we have to understand the setting. We're in the Treta Yuga. That's the Silver Age of Hindu cosmology. Imagine the bull of Dharma, which symbolizes morality, standing on just 3 legs. So morality is still high, but the cracks, they're definitely starting to show. This cosmic stage sets up the immense, frankly crushing pressure placed directly on our protagonist's shoulders.
But Manoj, this is exactly where modern readers hit a wall. Ram gets exiled for 14 years just because his stepmother manipulates his father. And he doesn't fight back? He doesn't raise an army? Why? Just walk away.
Because he is Maryada Purushottam, the ideal man. He's the one who never crosses the line of righteousness. He literally tells his family, "My father gave his word, and that word must be kept." No resentment at all. He simply leaves.
The absolutely crucial point here is Dharma. It's carved into the very foundation of his life. For Ram, this Dharma, his duty as a son, as a king, it's not some costume he can just take off when things get uncomfortable. It's his core identity. To violate his Dharma is to literally cease being himself. And the story is brutally honest about the personal toll of making that choice. Later on, Ram asks his wife Sita to prove her purity. And later still, he exiles her entirely just because public opinion demands it. The text doesn't pretend he's unaffected by this. He weeps. He is utterly devastated. He carries that severe heartbreak for the rest of his life. The ideal is not painless. It is just non-negotiable. Let's shift gears to Sita. Picture her as a captive in the Ashoka Grove. She's completely surrounded by demons, yet she sits upright, composed, completely unmoved. We really need to strip away this whole myth of the passive victim just waiting around for a rescue. She is arguably the most morally resolved character in the entire epic. Exactly! The demon king Ravana offers her literally everything: power, comfort, a way out. She refuses all of it, and not from a lack of imagination, but because she knows exactly who she is. When Ram asks her to undergo the Agni Pariksha, the fire test, to prove her purity, she doesn't beg, she doesn't even argue. She steps right into the flames, and they don't touch her. It's a display of absolute dignity. A dignity that cannot be taken by force, it can only be surrendered. And Sita, she never surrenders it. And that iron resolve holds to the very end. She faces a second exile, heavily pregnant, banished over a public rumor. She raises her twin sons entirely alone in the forest and brings them to adulthood. And when she's finally asked to return to the palace, she says no. She actively refuses the crown. Instead, she commands the earth, her mother, to take her back. She chooses the earth. Which brings us to Hanuman, son of the wind god. This is a being who leaps across oceans and carries entire mountains of medicine. But you know, his immense physical power isn't actually what makes him extraordinary. What makes him stand out in all of world literature is his selfless devotion. His capability is vast, sure, but he uses it entirely in service of something beyond himself. He is devoted love perfectly combined with total competence. And then we have Ravana. He is not some cartoon villain. We're talking about a genius, a noble scholar, a master musician. This is a king who built one of the most advanced civilizations of his era. But he is completely undone by a single unchecked desire. He wants Sita. He knows taking her violates Dharma, but he does it anyway. All that genius, all that civilization building, it all crumbles over one single moment where he refuses to master himself.
Which really brings us to the sheer scale of this epic today. 900 million. That's the number of people living right now in cultures where this isn't some dusty artifact, but a living document. It's performed in massive festivals in Delhi. It's literally Thailand's national epic. Indonesia stages it. It remains incredibly deeply woven into the modern fabric.
It survives because it forces every single one of us to confront an impossible question. What do you do when your duty and your love point in completely opposite directions? It places us right there at the edge of the forest with Ram, asking what we are truly willing to sacrifice to hold the line.
Let's lock this in with a quick 30-second recap of the explainer. The Ramayana is a map for living under extreme pressure. Dharma is your core identity, not a choice. Upholding the ideal carries a massive, non-negotiable cost. Sita represents unbreakable dignity. Hanuman is power perfected by devotion, and Ravana proves that supreme genius simply cannot survive unchecked desire. The Ramayana shows us ideals holding firm under immense pressure, but what happens when those ideals completely break down? What happens when the righteous side cheats? When the best man dies on the wrong side? Well, that brings us to our next explainer, the Mahabharata and the 700 verses right at the center of the battlefield.